Hey everybody, it's Lindsay with Garden Minutes and the North End Organic Nursery, and this is going to be the first of a series of food preservation videos that we're going to be doing this season. Typically, we often do classes in our store, but because this is a year where in-person learning is not the norm, we are going to be trying to do as many of our food preservation classes via video. So today, we're going to start with fermented pickles. And we're doing a savory pickle. We're not doing sweet pickles. I don't really know if you can do a fermented sweet pickle. If you've done one before, let me know in the comments below. But I'm imagining that the lactobacillus that we are going to be growing to ferment this delicious dill into a pickle doesn't like the sugar as much. So what we are going to be doing, instead of using vinegar is a byproduct of a different type of fermentation, which gives us acetic acid. We are going to be doing our own lacto-fermentation using a bacteria called lactobacillus that will then yield lactic acid. And that's what we will be pickling our little fruits here today. So to get started, the first thing you need is cucumbers, okay? So there's different types of cucumbers out there that are prized for different culinary qualities. This one is a pickling cucumber. Specifically, this particular kind is called Adams, but there's lots of different types of pickling cucumbers out there. And the reason why we like pickling cucumbers is because they are bred to have smaller cells inside of them, so that as you are fermenting them or even pickling them conventionally using acetic acid in a hot water bath, vinegar otherwise, you can expect them to stay crunchier. Some of the really delicious fresh eating cucumbers, like lemon cucumbers are a great example, they have larger cells inside of them. So as we are processing them, the turgidity or the tension inside of each of those cells is more easily burst. And what we want is to not have a big cell that bursts and then collapses the whole cucumber. And that gives us kind of soggy pickles. And we want a nice crisp pickle. So if you can find pickling cucumbers specifically that have been grown and bred for that, you've got a head start. Other things you can do to help keep your pickles crisp include the way that you chop them up. So if you can see here, come around to this side, this is the blossom end of my cucumber. That's gonna have to go. You can tell there was the little flower. Pluck that right off. Okay, well, we're gonna cut it off anyway. So that blossom end, if you were not to cut off the end, would actually make a soggy pickle also. You grab a knife, and what we're going to do is simply cut off the tip. It doesn't have to be far, just a 1/4 inch, but that will help to keep the enzymes that are at the tip of this cucumber from softening the whole pickle. Okay, so now that we have our pickling cucumbers, I've separated them into 2 different sizes. So we're going to do a small cucumber, keep them whole. This is my favorite kind. And we're gonna be doing them in a 1/2 gallon jar with the Perfect Pickler system. I'll show you a bit more about that here in a second. And then we will be doing a second batch in a quart-sized jar. And they're gonna be some of my larger cucumbers, and we're gonna turn these into spears. Each one of these cucumbers hopefully isn't too much taller than my jar. Once I trim them off, that'll be perfect. And I can have a bunch of speared pickles here and a bunch of reach in the jar pickles here. If you've never had a fermented pickle, by the way, it does have a different flavor. It is night and day difference when it comes to the complexity of the flavor versus your typical vinegar pickle. If you are old enough to remember some old-timey kind of like hardware stores that used to have the big vat of pickles near the counter where you could reach in and pull some of those out. Or there's a brand out there that I know you can buy called Bubby's. These are fermented pickles, not vinegar pickles. And the complexity of the flavor and the dynamic kind of, I don't know, flavor of these pickles is just so much different. Additionally, anytime you ferment something, you make a healthier food. Fermentation actually breaks down some of the nutrients inside and makes it more easily digestible to your body. In addition, by fermenting foods and then consuming fermented foods, you're helping to inoculate your body naturally with beneficial bacteria that will actually get into your gut and help digest other foods. So just like we'll be doing later in this series with sauerkraut, we're going to be breeding that same lactobacillus, which we have a symbiotic relationship with for eons of humanity, of eating these probiotic-rich foods to help us digest. Let's get started. So we've got our ingredients. We've got cucumbers. Today we're going to be seasoning our pickles with fresh garlic out of the garden, some dried dill seed. Now there's a difference between dill seed and dill weed. I usually like to do both, but my garden ran out of the dill weed and it's all dill seed right now. And I've got another round that's just starting. So I'm kind of in that awkward stage where I don't have fresh dill weed, but you can typically go to the grocery store this time of year and buy some full stalks of dill that have the head with the dill seed in it, and also some of the greenery below, which is the dill weed. It's kind of like the difference between cilantro and coriander. They both have their own flavor. Additionally, I'm going to be using some hot peppers that I pulled out of the garden. Again, because we're kind of a seasonal grower here, I'm getting out of my garden what's available to me right now. In a perfect world, I would have some red peppers. These are, I believe, serranos. I think they're serranos. Actually, no, I take that back. These are cayenne. I'd like to have them be red. It's a little bit more complex of a flavor. I like ripe peppers versus unripe peppers, which all green peppers are unripe peppers. Did you know that? But I'm going to use these because this is what I have available in my garden, just like I only have dill seed available in my garden right now. So this will have a slightly different flavor than the last batch of pickles that I made, that I actually had dill weed and some some red peppers available to me at that time. So we're going to go with green cayenne peppers today because I'm going to give this one a little bit of heat, totally optional. And then I'm also going to be doing dill seed and fresh garlic. So what else can you season your pickles with? Anything you like. You can add cumin, you can add ginger, you can add celery seed. There's any kind of flavor combination that you want to add. And they actually make something that's called pickling spice that has like peppercorns. That's another great option. And some other just complexity flavors. You can add onions into here and they're super delicious. Gives it a little bit of a oniony aftertaste. Today we're going to do 3 ingredients though for flavoring. We're going to do the green cayenne peppers, the dill seed, and the garlic. So let's get them processing. First thing I'm going to do is peel my garlic. No, I'm not going to sit here with my hands and painstakingly peel each and every clove. I am going to break them up, especially with these hardneck varieties that are nice and cured, and throw them into my quart-sized mason jar that I am going to then use later for pickling. But right now, it's going to be my garlic peeler. Watch this. Right now, I'm just going to shake the fill in the blank out of them, all right? Okay, shook that pretty darn hard for about 20 seconds. Now, with any luck, most of my garlic will be peeled. Yes, it is, look. So, by shaking it to and fro inside my jar, I just shortcutted the process of peeling every single one of these cloves. And it looks like only one of them didn't peel. No big deal, I'll call that a success. Probably if this was a little bit drier, it'd be even better. Put these to the side. I'm gonna wash out my container, show you what my next trick is. My next trick is using the same jar is making my brine. So a really easy way to remember your saltwater brine that you're using to do this fermented pickle, because you need the brine, which is salt, but it has to be the right kind of salt. I'm using a pickling salt here today. Any non-iodized salt will work. Pickling salt will give you the clearest brine. It is pure salt versus a sea salt, which will have added minerals to it, which I actually like and prefer most of the time. But for the sake of demonstration, I'm going to be using a straight up pickling salt. So to make an easy brine for fermentation, and you can use this across any other type of a direct brine versus vegetable-based brine that you're going to be using for any of your ferments. So for a pickle, I'm going to be adding salt water to it. For sauerkraut, I'm going to be adding salt to the cabbage and letting the cabbage do the brine itself. So this will be an external brine versus an internal brine. So back to my recipe. So I'm going to take my pickling salt, open it up. It is 2 tablespoons of pickling salt per quart of water. So this is my quart jar that I'm going to be using here in a bit. And I'm going to find my tablespoon and measure out 2 tablespoons of salt into my quart size jar here. And not nearly as vigorously as I did with the garlic, I'm going to mix my brine. So now, when I am ready to start brining my pickles, I already have an exact measurement. So the reason why this is my little hack when it comes to making fermented pickles in a gallon-sized jar, providing that I have enough cucumbers to completely fill this jar, this will be almost the perfect amount to top off this jar once it's full of product. So let that dissolve. It'll finish over here. While we're waiting for that, this is a perfect pickler. Now, I've been using this perfect pickler for years. It's a little bit road-worn. Here's what the kit comes like brand new. They give you a little bit of salt in there, some Celtic salt. Here is the pickling pipe part of it, the one-way valve. Okay, I always forget the exact terminology for this little doodad. I'm gonna remember it and I'm gonna write it right here. This is what it's actually called. So this little doodad, the lid that we stick the little doodad in, and then this is the cool part that I'm actually gonna steal out of this kit because I left it behind for this video. This is a little cup. It's a stainless steel cup, but what it does is you set it at the top of your ferment to hold all the liquids underneath, and it'll also let some of the water that is being created and bubbling up fall into here instead of try to overflow the sides of your jar. I'll talk a bit more about that in a little bit. So I'm gonna use my old guy. It's gonna do perfectly well. I've been using it for years, but I am gonna steal this little cup part. So let's get our big jar and start processing cucumbers. I already did this one. You can keep the stem on if you want. You know, after you're done processing them, it gives you a place to hold it. And I just broke it, so that one's going to. You can cut off both ends if you like, but do make sure that you cut off the blossom end of your cucumber before you toss it in. All right, I just finished filling my jar and then I decided that I wanted to fill it differently. So here we're gonna do a different way instead of just randomly throwing them in there. And in my opinion, this works better. You put your bigger pickles on the bottom. So that way, as you're building it up, you have the little pickles to kind of fill in the groove. So let's start over and let's fill our pickle jar. Okay, so before I completely fill up the second layer, I'm gonna start throwing in some of my flavor elements. So I'm gonna take some garlic, and you know what? Today I'm just going to chop it into kind of chunks. That way the internal juices will kind of spread out a bit more. You can just put the garlic in whole too. The whole shaking up process sort of broke it up a bit already. Also, people will just crush them sometimes with their knife. And that's definitely a way. You can see I'm gonna use a lot of garlic. I'm heavy on the garlic. So if you just wanted to crush it, move that out of the way there. You can just take your knife and just kind of smush down like that. And then you have a crushed piece of garlic. Okay, so I've got that. I'm gonna take since I'm doing 2 jars, I'm gonna take these guys, I'm gonna cut off their tops. I'm gonna leave the seeds in because I'm trying to get the heat, and they're not super ripe. The more ripe a pepper gets, a hot pepper, the spicier they get. So I'm gonna just split them open and leave the seeds in so we can have a hot pickle, hopefully. All right, my peppers are in. Now I'm gonna take some of my dill seed and I really just shove this whole thing in there. But I think I'm going to chop off the stem and kind of let them free float a bit. That should actually be quite a lot of dill flavor in there. So I'm gonna call that good. So I've got my aromatics in there. Now I'm gonna finish topping this off with my wee little baby cukes at the top. Makes it a little bit easier. Hey, look at that. Now it's gonna fit right. How about it? I could probably fit even a couple more in here, but I'm gonna save the rest of these bigger cukes for my next batch. So hopefully this will still give me enough. And another way that you wanna dry test it is you wanna make sure this little cup could still sit in here and get pushed down, and the lid can screw down over top of it without the pickles being too close to the top. So see, my pickling water is now nice and clear. That's the result of good pure salt, pickling salt, canning salt. I'm gonna take it and I'm going to just pour it over my batch of pickles. And look at that, look at that. I love when things work out perfectly. Filled it up right perfectly to the top there. So that's my little saltwater hack. Okay, so for this jar, I'm gonna use my Perfect Pickler. I'm gonna show you guys how to use the Pickle Pipes on the next jar. I'm gonna kind of press my cup in here. I'm gonna take my top and I'm going to put it on it. I'm gonna sit this in a nice, coolish, darkish location. Dark because we don't want the sunlight hitting it. It'll kind of change the color on it. It could heat it up a bit, and you don't want it to heat up. You want it to be at a nice, consistent temperature. Now for fermentation in general, we're looking at between 68 and 75 degrees really being that perfect zone for fermenting. So I'm gonna find a cool, kind of steady spot in my kitchen that doesn't get too hot, that I can just let it be and ignore it. So for right now, I'm just gonna put it back here. Probably not the best place next to the toaster. We're gonna put it over here. The toaster and the air fryer. Oh, one extra little cucumber, it's okay. I'll eat that one. Mmm, sweet. Now that I'm done chewing, we have to make a second batch of salt now for our next round of cucumbers. But I didn't bring a second jar with me, so I'm going to have to use this jar, dump it out, and then we can refill it. Now, since I'm gonna be filling this up with spears, I'm not gonna need a full quart of brine this time. So I'm gonna cut it in half. So it was 2 tablespoons for 1 quart. So I'm gonna do a half a quart and 1 tablespoon, just to not be wasteful. So I love canning jars. It's kind of a thing of mine. I use them for, this is my favorite drink jar. This is my favorite storage jar. They're usually pretty economical to buy. They're pretty durable. They have multi-uses, and once you've used the pickles out of here, what are you gonna do? Go store your canning jar? No, it goes in my cabinet so I can drink out of it with tea and stuff later on. The other thing I like about it is that a lot of them, most brands, are gonna have measurement marks. So there are 4 cups in a quart. So I wanted 2 cups of water, so I just filled it up to the 2-cup mark. Shake, shake, shake. Got my brine. Now, because I'm using this particular jar for this pickle, I'm going to take, there we go. I'm gonna put my brine water just in a regular old glass, boring glass, and on the side. Oh, it's like some of the salt's still in there, but that's okay because ultimately it's all going to the same place. So I'm gonna take my cucumbers just like before, cut off the tip end, and now I'm going to slice them down the middle, okay? And slice them down the middle again. okay? And then you gotta decide, do you want that to be the thickness of your spear? I kind of like that actually. You could probably cut it one more time again if you want a nice little thin spear, but I like the weight of that. I think that feels good. So I'm going to start assembling this sideways so I can stack them in a nice tidy way. Okay, leave that on the side there. Now, just like before, we want to, before we're done loading this, we want to get our aromatics in, right? So I'm going to chop up my onion, garlic. Onion would work well here too, but this is actually garlic, not onion. It's a hardneck variety that I grew in my garden this year. If you guys watch my videos, I hope you realize that I am a queen of imperfection. I am not big on everything being photo finished. This is me in my kitchen doing what I've been loving to do for years now, and hopefully you guys get to enjoy it with me a bit. So, not the most graceful. Here's my pepper. I'm gonna do like I did before, split it down the middle. Shove that in. All right, now I'm gonna continue to stack. Oh, forgot my dill. That's kind of a big deal. Ha ha ha. I said it. Okay. Yes. Really thing I like about these Adams cucumbers too, you can see there's a fair amount of seeds in there, but they're super small and fine. And even as the cucumbers get bigger, they still kind of stay on the smaller side. I don't want to overstuff this, but I definitely don't want to waste space either. So I'm gonna see where else. I know I can fit one more in there. Look at that. Perfect. All right, so you've got my spears all tidily lined up there on purpose. No, just got lucky. All right, now let's take our brine and ta-da! I have more than enough brine with a little extra. It's just salt water, so I will be tossing that. Okay, here is a different method. These are called pickle pipes, these are pickle pipes, and these are pickle pebbles. They're both made by a different company that is called Mason Top. And which one's better? I like them both, I really do. The pickle pipe, what it is, so when we have this one-way check valve dealio here, right? What happens is that the reason why we have this is so that as the fermenting is happening, the gases can escape and they go through a little water chamber here and go out, but nothing can come back in. So you're keeping your ferment sealed away from air and other pollutants, and it makes it, in my opinion, it enables you to not have to constantly be checking your ferment and skimming for mold and stuff. I will put this on my batch of pickles and stick them in a corner and call it good once they're ready in about 3 to 5 days. So that being said, this is one option. It does the trick. The other option is using these pickle pipes, and they come in all kinds of little fun colors. Let's take a look at what I have left in this container. I've got pretty pink, purple, blue. Which one should we use? Let's go this turquoisey, bluish thing. So what this does though, is that this will create a little one-way valve also. It's kind of like, and I don't know how better to explain this, but a bottle nipple. It has an itty bitty little opening up there that lets gases escape again, and it's flexible silicone, but it closes up so that really nothing can fall in. Is it as airtight as the check valve in the Perfect Pickler? No, but for a fast ferment like pickles, it's totally fine. For a fast ferment of any kind, it's totally fine. Now, I will talk about this more when we start doing sauerkrauts and slow ferments. You need to be a little bit more controlled about your environment when you're going to be fermenting something for multiple weeks. This is going to be a 3 to 5 day type of ferment, so not too super concerned. So we're going to use this guy. Now, the next part of it, remember how I talked about making sure that you're keeping your ferment under liquid. And the reason for that is because under liquid, it stays in that anaerobic environment where the lactobacillus will thrive. If it floats to the top and is exposed to air, that's when you're going to start to have mold and gross stuff happening and rotting happening, not fermentation. So these pickle pipes, did I grab the right size? So this pickle pipe is actually, I grabbed the wrong size. This one's for a regular mason jar. So I'm using wide mouth mason jars, but I actually think because they're so tight in there, this will still do the trick. But normally you would want to put this into a regular mason jar, and you can get the wide mouth ones for here. They have a fun little handle here. Isn't that so cute? I'm gonna give it a quick rinse. So nice and clean, little mason top. Going to just stick it right on the top to hold my ferment under, and it's gonna totally do the trick with this. If this was a ferment where there's lots of little itty bitty things that wanna float up, then you would definitely want the right size in there. So now I'm gonna take my pickle pipe on top, and a fresh jar always comes with a 2-part lid. You've got your canning lid, and then you have your ring. I'm putting the canning lid to the side, and I could use that later once this is all done to just seal it up. You can actually hot water bath can them again if you want them for to have a good shelf life. But for right now, I just want this ring. I'm gonna just clamp that down like that. Done. This is ready to ferment, just like my perfect pickler. So now I have my whole dill pickles in here, and I have my dill spears in here. Both of them are going to sit and ferment for about 3 to 5 days. If it's warm in your kitchen or wherever you're putting this, you're looking at closer to 3 days. If you're somebody that likes to crank your air conditioner up, and it's gonna be like at the 68-degree end of the spectrum, then you're going to be looking at closer to 5 days. You can go as long as a week. I've known people to even go longer. It all is about your taste. If you like a really sour pickle, you're gonna wanna ferment for longer. If you want a less sour pickle, then you wanna ferment for less. So sometimes around the 3 to 4 day mark, I'll open up this and grab one, slice off a piece and take a bite, see how it tastes. Feel like it needs another 24 hours, I'll close it back up, put it back on the counter. Make sure you do keep your hands clean. When you are preparing your food too, cleanliness is super important. You don't want to be introducing a whole bunch of unwelcome microbes into the mix, so I always make sure I scrub clean my fruit. Something that I meant to mention in the earlier part of the video also is that the freshness of your ingredients is super important. If you are trying to rescue some nearly rotten fruit out of your fridge because you just don't think you're gonna eat that many salads and the cucumbers are going bad, so let's make pickles, that's the wrong mentality. You want to be harvesting and running to your kitchen as quickly as possible. Now, it's not literally that fast. You have to do it, but the fresher the produce is that you're going to be fermenting, the better quality the ferment will be, and the higher flavor content and the higher shelf stability will be as well. How long will these keep? So once they are done, they will keep in the fridge for a minimum of 3 months, in my opinion. I haven't really put that to test because they're gone, usually within the first couple of weeks, if not sooner, especially this time of year. It's just so refreshing to have it alongside of a veggie burger. 3 months, I would say at a minimum. I've seen people say 6 months. I know that with sauerkraut, I've given it 6 months and it's been fine, as long as it's kept refrigerated. If you don't have enough refrigerator space, this same jar, in this same situation, all you need to do is take off this lid, either one of these, and replace it with that 2-part canning lid and put it through a canner. And we will do a video that is all about canning produce, especially for high acid products like this, and then make it shelf stable. The only disadvantage is that you will then kill the probiotics that we are growing as a fermented pickle, but you'll still have the flavor. It will make it a slightly soggier pickle. It won't be as crunchy once you heat it. But if you're looking to have lots of pickles that you can just pull off the shelf out of your pantry all winter long, canning is typically your best choice. Thanks for joining us today.